What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And guys, I wish I was delivering quarterback news to you today, but alas, we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. So we're going to look ahead to the 2025 NFL Draft. We know that the New York Giants are picking third overall, not first overall, thanks to a once-in-a-lifetime performance by Drew Lock against the Indianapolis Colts. It was a performance that he's had never before and never again, probably. Drew Lock in that game absolutely messing up the Giants draft pick, and now they're picking third rather than first. At first overall, of course, we know that they would take their quarterback, most likely Cam Ward. But now at third overall, what happens if the quarterbacks go off the board? And walk with me here, because I know Cam Ward to the Titans looks like a lock, and a lot of people feel as though Shedeur Sanders could easily fall to the Giants at 3. However, if you've been paying attention to the Cleveland Browns this week, Alex, I'm not sure if you've seen this, but they announced a big draft party next month, and they announced the expansion of a stadium or a new stadium, something of the sort. There's been a lot of rumblings, basically, that they're preparing for a new era, and they're planning on ushering in a new quarterback this offseason, a rookie quarterback with the second overall pick. So let's go through the line of thinking. What if Cam Ward does go number 1 to the Titans, like we all expect him to? And then Shedeur Sanders goes off the board at number 2 to the Cleveland Browns. Well, then what do the New York Giants do at number 3? And can they pass up on Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter? Should they pass up on Heisman Trophy winner Travis Hunter? What would their other options be if they decided to pass on Travis Hunter? Or should they just not think twice about it, take the Colorado superstar? That's kind of what we want to discuss. We really mainly want to focus on Travis Hunter in this episode and just kind of talk about how special of a talent he is. And we will do that for many other prospects throughout this pre-draft process. Now that we're getting closer to April, we will talk in length about Abdul Carter and other players, but mainly want to focus on Travis today, just because he is such a special and dynamic player who fits not one, but potentially 2 needs for the New York Giants. So, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? You know, if the quarterbacks do go off the board 1-2, man, that's not ideal for the New York Giants. They need to get a solid veteran quarterback in here before the draft. That's obviously why they're pursuing Rodgers, meeting with Wilson and these other guys. But if the quarterbacks do go off the board and the Giants are picking at number 3, what do you think about Travis Hunter? I think that's a pretty solid consolation prize, don't you?
I mean, consolation prize is one way to put it. I'd say you're walking away with arguably the best player in the draft class. I know a lot of people have mentioned that they would prefer Abdul Carter, and I'm fine with Abdul Carter. Like, this is a tremendous pass rush specimen, and he could be an elite player in the NFL. Obviously, he only has really 1 year of true pass rush experience under his belt at Penn State. So it's like you're getting a guy with insane upside, a guy that maybe not even remotely close to his potential, and he did it with like 1 arm towards the end of the season. So really impressive year for Abdul Carter. But Hunter's kind of interesting because just like the Giants right now, Anthony, are trying to open up the possibilities. The reason, and I'm starting to kind of understand now, is like the reason they wanted Matthew Stafford is to have options, right? So that way they could say, we don't have to take quarterback in the first round of the draft. We could go BPA and feel comfortable with that and justify it. Now they're trying to get the best free agent quarterback possible, which is Aaron Rodgers in this instance, or Russell Wilson as the second option. Does that still hold the same weight? Does that still hold the same kind of justification that you can afford to pass on a quarterback? And if, in this instance, 2 are off the board already, if, it goes Cam Ward 1 and then Sanders 2, you walk away with Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter. Both those guys are by far and away, everyone would say, the best prospects in this draft class compared to Ward and to Sanders. Now we're starting to hear a little bit more from like Todd McShay saying like Sanders, is really good. But he also said like Travis Hunter has Hall of Fame pedigree. And then you look at obviously other guys like Mel Kiper, who says like Sanders is his QB1 in this draft. He thinks he'd be a great fit for the Giants. And, there's a lot of different things here that are playing a kind of part and playing a role in this draft sequence. And over the next month, we'll hear plenty of different narratives and different storylines as we approach. But in my opinion, just talking about Travis Hunter, just talking about him as a pure prospect, what he brings to a team. I know he's not going to play receiver and cornerback at the same time, but I think that the Giants would probably have him play receiver and then have him dabble at cornerback. Like, he'll play both, but not full time both sides. They'll probably use him. It could be vice versa too. You have him at cornerback and then use him at the receiver position sparingly. But what I think is the more intriguing aspect of Travis Hunter isn't the fact that he can play both positions on any given day, whatever. It's that injuries are prominent in the NFL, right? They're prominent. They happen every year. If you have an injury to Neighbors, you have a damn good insurance policy. If you have an injury to Paulson Adebo or Deontay Banks, you have a damn good insurance policy. He's able to solve two of the most important positions on both sides of the football for you at a moment's notice, at a very high level, and probably will improve. He's 21 years old. That is not something that you find very often. Imagine you could take Malik Neighbors and say, damn, well, Banks really struggled last season. Let's have him play cornerback for us. Imagine you already have a WR1. Let's say you had like Jamar Chase in your team, whatever. Like you could say, damn, well, Neighbors can play cornerback for you, and Deontay Banks is really struggling. We need a defensive asset. We need a defensive piece to really infuse that. And we don't even have to go to free agency or the draft pool, or rather the trade pool to find that answer. We have it on the other side of the football. You have versatility there. So like that variable, you don't find that every day. Like you can't find that in anywhere in football. Nowhere. There's nobody that's able to do that. If the Giants were able to get a piece like that and they operate with preparation, they're smart about it, they could turn Travis Hunter into the ultimate insurance policy. And when you don't need him as an insurance policy, he's offering you an elite playmaker, an elite defender on day one. Obviously, I'm not going to say he's guaranteed that, but he's an elite prospect in that regard. It's exciting. Like that aspect of his game is truly unique, and I'd love to be the guinea pig to test that out.
Yeah, I do want to say a couple things about the ability that Hunter has to play on both sides of the ball. And I actually think what you just pitched there, that idea of basically using him as a starter in one regard and then a backup in another regard, where if you have an injury, okay, now he's playing that position rather than this position. I think that's a pretty interesting way to implement this skill set, and actually one of the best ideas that I've heard in terms of his usage at the NFL level. So I'll give you credit for that, because I do think that's a really interesting way to look at his unique abilities. But I want to say this about Travis Hunter and his ability to play both sides of the ball. A lot of people will say exactly what you said right at the start, where you were like, the Giants wouldn't let him play both sides of the ball, or teams aren't going to let him do it. I disagree. I think teams are going to let him do it. This is, we're living in the NFL in a time where players are getting paid exorbitant amounts of money, and they are doing everything they can to continue to increase that wage. You saw what Shohei Ohtani got when he proved that he could play both sides in baseball. Travis Hunter is going to try his best to get that Shohei Ohtani contract. Like, that's his motivation. He's going to go to a team and he's going to be like, no, I'm playing both sides. Put me on the field. And they're going to want to put him on the field because he is that talented. So I think that a team is probably going to draft him and think, okay, we're primarily going to play him here, sprinkle him here. He's going to say, no, I want to play both sides. Put me out there, put me out there, put me out there. And he's going to harass the coaches until they do it. And I think that's ultimately a good thing, because I think he is talented. And put it in this perspective, Alex. Everybody says he can't do it because we've never seen him do it before. Okay, so that's the point. Let him make his history. I want to see that happen. I'm a sports fan at the end of the day. Whether he gets drafted to the Giants, the Browns, New England, Dallas for that matter, I don't care. I like watching history happen in sports. Travis Hunter playing on both sides of the ball would be historic, and it would be one of the coolest things that ever happened in the sport of football at the NFL level. If a team steps in and prevents that from happening because they need to protect their assets or whatever, you're kidding yourself. Especially a team like the New York Giants. You're not good enough to tell Travis Hunter that he's not allowed to reach his full potential and maximize his skill set. Let him go out on the field, let him ball out, and let him be himself and do what makes him so special. He is a unicorn in the sport of football. If you are going to draft him and not use him as a unicorn, you're only kidding yourselves. You're hurting yourselves, and you are limiting the potential not only of one of your best players immediately on your roster as soon as you draft him, but also the potential of your entire team. And if Travis Hunter really wants to play both sides, and that's what he wants, and the coaching staff is like, no, that's not happening. You're not allowed to do it. How do you think all of his teammates who support him and like him are going to feel as well? So ultimately, I know that that's the narrative, and that's how a lot of people do feel. Like, he's not going to play all the snaps. Football is too physical, especially at the NFL level. Once you reach that level, things get way more aggressive, and it's just not going to work out. It might not work out. It totally might not. But that should not prevent the New York Giants from trying. They don't have anything to lose. Risk it all, man. Go all in. Put Travis Hunter on the field as much as he's comfortable being out there. If he's feeling a little tired or feeling a little bit banged up, he'll alert the coaches. He'll say, I need a playoff. I've already done all this for you. Let me take a couple plays off. I'll get back out there on the next drive on offense, because I don't feel like playing defense this drive. But I really don't like the idea here that so many analysts, fans alike, and teams alike, considering the Browns said that they view him as a wide receiver, not a cornerback, I don't like that everybody is trying to cap this kid's potential. He has elite potential, Hall of Fame potential, which you mentioned Tom McShay said. He really is in a position to make history at the NFL level. And I think that a team, especially like the Giants coming off of a 3-14 season, if you are going to cap this kid's potential and prevent him from making that history, don't draft him. Well, only draft him if you intend on letting him be the unicorn that he is. So that's my take on his ability to play both sides of the ball. I just get frustrated when I hear people cap a really talented football player's potential, and I don't want to see that happen. So wherever Travis Hunter goes, if it is the Giants, I really hope that team allows him to play both sides of the ball. Now, I understand there are a lot more factors at play. You don't want your best player injured, and you don't want him, losing steam by midseason. All of those things are true, and I understand that. But there are ways to work around that. And I think with Travis Hunter, the idea that you brought up here, Alex, where he's a starter on one side of the ball, and then if somebody gets injured, he becomes a starter on that side of the ball, I do think that's a really great way to implement it. And I think that's a nice middle ground here between making him a one-sided player or making him a both sides full-time player. I think that's a really good middle ground. But for the New York Giants, I want to put into perspective why Travis Hunter just makes sense for them. They really didn't do anything this offseason in free agency to upgrade their offense. Nothing. They re-signed Darius Slayton. That's not an upgrade. That's maintaining the status quo. And Alex, this offense finished 31st in scoring with 16.1 points per game. That's terrible. And that's an indictment on Brian Dable and everybody else on that offensive coaching staff. They need a legitimate playmaker. And I understand. The argument is you build through the trenches. That's why you might go for Abdul Carter. He's a trenches guy, and he's going to be an elite pass rusher that can change your defense. Absolutely true. But you know what can change the future of your team is if you have a young quarterback and you pair him with a superstar receiver, and let's make that 2 superstar receivers. And Travis Hunter has the ability to be a superstar playmaker. So I actually buy more into him as a wide receiver for the New York Giants than I do as a cornerback. I think the Paulson and Debo signing is huge. I think Deontay Banks, it's too soon to give up on him, so he needs his starting snaps to continue to develop. So I think where the Giants fit Travis Hunter in day one immediately, go let him be that elite playmaker opposite Malik Neighbors, and watch, Alex, that entire offense just open up. If you got 2 elite wide receivers in that offense, plus a young quarterback if the Giants get Dart in round 2, if we're going to talk about that, or, Aaron Rodgers, whoever. Plus now you got Tyrone Tracy, a young emerging back. The box is not stacked anymore because now defenses have to worry about 2 elite playmaking talents, plus Wan'Dale Robinson underneath, out of the slot, wide open all day long because teams are doubling either Hunter or Neighbors or both. So I think the way that drafting him could just transform your entire offense and open it all up is spectacular. Plus the added fact that, hey, if he wants to, he probably can be a shutdown cornerback as well.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I'll say this right now. Deontay Banks in this instance, the guy needs some competition. Like, they need someone who's going to push him. And Travis Hunter is not going to only push him, he's going to push him for his future. Like, his whole job is now in question because you draft Travis Hunter, you're like, hey, buddy, like, you're going to be playing cornerback and receiver for us during training camp. And you're going to be competing alongside Neighbors and Slayton and, obviously Banks, and go beat Banks for the job. Like, and Banks is going to be like, well, damn, like, they just drafted my replacement, but not really because he's going to play receiver as well. So I got to beat this guy out now. Like, sometimes you got to give a player a swift kick in the ass, and that means competition. Travis Hunter would push Banks to the brink. You know what I mean? Like that, you want to get the most out of a player, you say, go win that job then. We could use Hunter elsewhere. We don't need him to play cornerback. We don't want him to play cornerback. But we do want you to beat him for the job because you have the talent, and now we brought in a CB1 to take pressure off of you. And this is your chance. This is your opportunity to win. Like, go be competitive. This is the NFL. This is not freaking Pee Wee football anymore, dude. You don't just get given jobs. Go win that job. You were a first-round draft pick, had one of the highest athletic scores ever in the draft at the position. Go win the freaking job. No more pussyfooting. So that's kind of how I would go about, considering Hunter. Offensively, like you said, he adds an element to your offense that you simply cannot replicate. And I'll tell you this right now: if the Giants go out and sign Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, and they end up drafting a quarterback, that quarterback's probably not playing this year, guys. Like, there's a very, very good chance that quarterback does not play much in 2025. So you might as well go after Travis Hunter, get a unicorn Hall of Fame caliber prospect, that as far as you could take that, whatever. Obviously we don't know if he's going to be that, but a guy that has that level of talent, he's only 21 years old, and then sell the farm next year to get your quarterback. If that opportunity arises, also quarterback shake free. Who knows? Maybe the Rams are like, damn, well, we don't really want to pay Stafford anymore, and becomes available again. The Giants like, oh, hey, well, we're back in the mix. Who knows? Maybe Kyler Murray and the Cardinals fall apart and Murray wants to be traded. You never know what's going to happen, right? So the Giants just go after the best player available. That rookie, if they draft Sanders, he's not going to start immediately. He's not ready to start immediately. Even Cam Ward, I don't think he's ready to start immediately. I think that there should be a bridge situation for those two guys, no matter what. So, assuming the fact that they're going to get Rodgers or Russ, and most likely they are given the starting job. Like, they are like, you are starting for us. The quarterback we draft is not playing until you either get hurt or you're playing so poorly that we have no choice, which is unlikely. So, that's where it's like you might want to consider just going BPA and then waiting until next year to figure out the quarterback position in a much deeper class at the quarterback spot. And maybe there's some guys shake free. Who knows? Anything's possible. Obviously it's a gamble, it's a risk, but so is drafting a guy you may not have full 100% conviction in. Obviously the Giants may have conviction in one of these guys, and that's possible. But Hunter gives you basically a fool's way out of like, you get the best player in the draft, a guy that has untapped potential that could be astronomical, a guy that you may regret not taking, and that's really hard to pass on. It's a really hard decision to make. I know a lot of people are probably like, I would just take Carter, and like, I don't hate that move either. Like, I would consider that as well. Him and Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence, you're talking about one of the best defensive lines in football. Like, you're talking about an elite pass rush with a reinforced secondary. So, it's certainly not something I'm looking past right now either. But Hunter gives you the insurance of knowing you have a CB, a receiver, and Neighbors and Hunter guys. That's the best 1-2 combination that we've had in a decade. Like, I don't think we've seen a combination like that for the Giants. Maybe, I don't even know how long it's been. Obviously you look at like Hakeem Nicks, you look at Victor Cruz, you look at Plaxico Burress and Amani Toomer, you look at some of those combos, you're like, yeah, hell yeah. But like, these guys have more like, I'd say raw athletic upside than some of those guys, but we just don't know what they're going to be long term, so it's hard to say.
Oh, yeah, of course it's hard to say. I mean, I feel pretty confident that Malik Neighbors is going to be a superstar in this league long term. I mean, what he showed in year one of his career, plus the fact that I was fully convinced he was the best player in last year's draft class. I thought he was going to be a star from the day that he entered the league, and I still, proven right, and that's not shocking. That's not surprising to anybody. I'm not giving myself credit for that one. Everybody knew Neighbors was going to be an absolute stud, and everybody feels like Travis Hunter is going to be an absolute stud, and I do think he will be. And I think what it really is about Travis Hunter for me, Alex, is we're talking about a guy who really hasn't been coached up to learn the wide receiver position all that much just yet. Like, he isn't necessarily completely refined as a route runner. He isn't, super savvy, excuse me, when sitting down in zones. Like, all these little things, the minutia of playing wide receiver. Has he mastered those things yet? No. But you know what he has? Unbelievable contested catch ability. Maybe the best body control and ball skills in college football last year when there was a 50-50 ball hanging up there for him. And arguably one of the most dynamic weapons with the ball in his hands that college football saw last season. So what you basically have is just the freakiest athlete possible. And you know where the freakiest athletes possible succeed in the NFL, Alex? It's at wide receiver. The best athletes in the league, whether you're talking about the fastest player in the league in Tyreek Hill, whether you're talking about the tallest fast guy in terms of T. Higgins, the guy's 6'5", he's just a freak, or a guy who just can juke anybody, break any tackle, and take it to the house, that would be Jamar Chase. The best athletes are wide receivers, and the best wide receivers are the best athletes, is essentially what I'm getting at here. So Travis Hunter and his potential as a wide receiver, it's basically rooted in the fact that he is more athletic than 90% of wide receivers. He can basically step out there, say, I'm the best athlete on this football field, just get the ball into my hands, or just put it near me, and I'll get it in my hands. And that makes everything simple. Then you just teach him how to refine his route tree, how to run this route, how to do that. That stuff is so coachable and teachable. But he has all the things that you literally cannot teach a human being how to do. So that's the difference with Travis Hunter. That's why he would be such a special talent at the wide receiver position. And the same can be said about cornerback. Cornerback is a little bit tougher to learn than wide receiver. However, you can teach those things. And he does have those ball skills that I mentioned. That's translatable to both sides of the ball. And he has that ability to flip his hips and turn around and keep up with anybody. He really is just a rare athlete and a true specimen, and that's why he's so exciting. Now, the same can be said in many ways about Abdul Carter, and that's where I kind of want to lead this conversation next, Alex, because we've hinted at it. Carter would be the other option there at number 3 for the New York Giants. And then I think this boils down to a few things. Positional value is one of them. I think it also boils down to drafting for need versus best player available. So if you believe that Travis Hunter is the best player available and you subscribe to the BPA strategy, Travis Hunter would be your pick. However, if you draft for need, I think that you argued that Travis Hunter is the bigger need because cornerback and wide receiver, he fills one of the two needs, and the Giants do have Brian Burns and they do have Kayvon Thibodeau. However, if you draft for those things but include positional value into the equation, that is where things change because an edge rusher, a pass rusher, especially seeing the contract Max Crosby just got, the contract that TJ Watt signed, the one that Danielle Hunter just yesterday signed a 1-year extension worth $36 million. Micah Parsons is due to make over $40 million. Trey Hendrickson is in a negotiation. So we're seeing the market for pass rushers explode. And that is an aspect of this conversation that needs to be brought in when debating Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter at number 3. And so, Alex, that's where I want to ask you, when you look at positional value and contract value tied to positions, does that maybe make you lean one way or another in terms of Hunter versus Carter?
I mean, listen, if you feel, let's play it this way. Jamar Chase just got what? Like 40 mil a year? Like something like that. So,
41, I think.
They're kind of neck and neck right now, receivers and pass rushers. Like the elite receivers and the elite pass rushers are getting pretty similar money. But what if you had a receiver that also helped you at cornerback? Maybe that's even worth 10 mil. Maybe that's $10 million. Like a starting level cornerback gives you $30 million, maybe let's say $20 million per season, like a above average starting quarterback. That's what the going rate is these days, probably more than 20. Debo got 18. He's like a fringe CB1. Like I would say, if Hunter plays half the amount of snaps, like 50% of snaps, or even 30-40% of snaps, but plays a really high level at cornerback, that's like $8 to $10 million worth of value you're getting. You know what I mean? So you can kind of tally that onto the worth that he's giving you at receiver too. I think that's super valuable, right? Like, let alone the receiver being pretty similar to pass rushers these days. So are cornerbacks. They're up there too. I'm not that high, but they're getting there. There's just not that many like elite cornerbacks in the NFL that are like warranting that type of money right now. There's no one like Jamar Chase status getting that type of money, or Micah Parsons cornerback levels. It's hard. Cornerbacks are really, really hard position. It's really hard position. So you're having to overpay for guys that may not be like the top tier. That's just how it goes. But if Hunter can be like that top tier and also play receiver, like that's value. You can't really put that into a number. You know what I mean? Like you really can't put that into a number. It's so hard to like make that work mathematically. So I'm just trying my best here to like come up with some sort of equation. But I mean, also the truth of the matter is the Giants are going nowhere until their offense is situated, right? Like they need offensive support. If they sign a quarterback, a good one, and they draft Hunter, not only did you overhaul your defense this season, but you also overhauled your offense. And you still have the two third-round picks, a second-round pick, and the rest of your draft. You could get a starting defensive tackle. You could add a guard. You could add more depth. You could add a linebacker. You could do so many. You could add another running back, which we want to do in the mid to late rounds. Like you could reinforce the whole rest of your roster that way. And then Anthony, next year you have Hunter, Neighbors, all these guys under contract. Then you're an attractive destination, right? If Joe Schoen ends up fired, if Joe Schoen doesn't end up surviving this, and a new regime, they're looking for new coaches, a new general manager, they're going to be one of the hottest destinations in the game because the new regime isn't going to be inheriting a quarterback they didn't draft. They're going to be inheriting a superstar unicorn playmaker in Hunter or a superstar, elite prospect pass rusher in Abdul Carter. If you're thinking long term, I know that's not what Joe Schoen is thinking because he's like, I got to win now and got to prepare for the future and protect myself, which is also, Anthony, why we advocated for them being fired because we didn't want to find ourselves being biased in this situation from Joe Schoen's perspective. Like, we have to do what's best to save jobs, not for the future of this team. The future of this team, like if they want to position themselves for long-term success, they got to add more talent to this roster on offense specifically. They need more offensive support. Like Hunter is the right pick, is the right selection at 3 if he was there. But just I guess it depends on your assessment of the quarterbacks, obviously. But I do think that that's one of like the he's the closest to a sure thing. Hard to pass on, but again, I still think the Giants should be taking quarterback in this draft class. I just don't know where, and I don't know who it's going to end up being. And I read something interesting, Anthony, I'll get your take on. Someone was like, teams are going away from taking guys, the quarterbacks that just aren't like going to be a home run pick or aren't going to be like have that upside. You know what I mean? Like they're just not taking them until like the late rounds. It's something that seems to be a trend lately.
You're not wrong, but I need to say this about that. This is like, I don't want this to spiral into three different conversations and we go on for another 20 minutes, so I'm going to try my best to keep this articulate and brief. This problem, and I'm going to call it a problem. I think it's a problem that there are NFL teams and fans that feel like you can't settle for a good quarterback, that you have to hit a home run at quarterback. Listen, guys, the idea that you need to hit this home run and you have to full swing and shoot for the stars every single time for quarterback, I understand where it comes from because you look at the top of the league and you look at Mahomes and Allen and Burrow, and these are all home run swings at the quarterback position. And you look at Tom Brady and the way that he dominated the NFL. If you don't have the best quarterback in the NFL, can you win a Super Bowl is the big question. I understand all of that. Jalen Hurts just won a Super Bowl. There are other ways to do it. You don't necessarily need to shoot for the stars and get the home run quarterback. So that's one example. But I also just want to say this. Stop thinking solely about Super Bowls. I get it. That might be controversial. Giants fans are going to say, if you're not trying to win Super Bowls, what are you even trying to do? Are you trying to be in the middle of the league in quarterback hell? Everybody says this. The middle of the NFL is hell. No, it's not. Where the New York Giants are right now, that is hell. The Giants have been at the bottom of the league for the last 10 years. We are in hell. You know where I'd rather be, Alex? Picking 15 to 20 every single season. Having a fucking chance of making the playoffs. That is not hell. Where does this narrative come from that the Giants would be in hell if they had a good quarterback but not great quarterback? Are you kidding me? Sign me up, man. Sign me up for the 8-win seasons. Because you know who had the 8-win seasons before they started winning Super Bowls? The Kansas City Chiefs. Every single year, they were in the middle of the NFL. That's not hell. That's maybe purgatory. But you know what you get when you get out of purgatory? If you're a good person, heaven. So if you go sit in purgatory for a little bit, it might pay off for you. The Chiefs did it. They were in the middle of the NFL, Alex, for like 10 years. Whenever they hired Andy Reid, he perpetually got them mid, like right to the fringe of the playoffs. They might get in, they might not. They might win a playoff game, they might not. They were not a juggernaut team. They got to the middle of the league, and then once they built this good roster, they realized all we need now is a quarterback. Let's trade up, sell the farm, get our quarterback. Boom. Now they're the juggernauts that they are. But they didn't get there overnight. They didn't get there from being a top 3 pick and just shooting to the top. They built a roster over time, spent time in the middle, and then got to the top. And for what it's worth, so did the Patriots. They had Drew Bledsoe, a good quarterback. They were a good team. Then they plugged in Tom Brady and became the best team. That's how you do it. You don't see Jaden Daniels' meteoric rise to the top every single year. It's not common, and oftentimes, when it does happen that a team drafts a quarterback and then shoots to the top, they often do fizzle out pretty quick. The Cincinnati Bengals have had a really tough time getting back to the top ever since Joe Burrow took them there and lost that Super Bowl. So look at the league. Look at being in the middle. Everybody says it's hell. That's not true. I think everyone needs to throw that narrative away. And you need to understand that oftentimes having good quarterback play for a stretch to reset and make you a respectable franchise again, that's a good thing. And eventually, like you said earlier, Alex, you never know what's going to happen, which quarterback hits the trade block. The Rams, weren't they in the middle for a very long time? Then all of a sudden, whoa, Matt Stafford is on the trade block? Let's get him. This is our window. Got Matt Stafford, won a Super Bowl. But they did that by having a roster that was set up and competitive enough for them to trade for Stafford and become that elite Super Bowl winning team. So getting to the middle needs to be step one for the Giants. Expecting them to draft Shador or Cam and immediately become Super Bowl contenders, we're all kidding ourselves. The New York Giants are not good yet, and you can't be great until you're good, and that's how I feel about it. You know, obviously, CJ Stroud immediately took the Texans and they became a playoff team, sure. And then he took a little bit of a step back this past year. Now there's some question marks surrounding CJ Stroud and the future of the Houston Texans. Yes, they won a playoff game this year, but there were questions in the regular season. These overnight sensations are exciting and fun, and everybody wants the quick fix because we're tired of losing. But realistically, we need a return to the middle of the league before we can get to the top. That's how most teams do it. You build a program, build a roster up. into eventually becoming a juggernaut. That's how the top teams in the NFL did it. The Bills are another example. They were good. They were a fringe playoff team. I actually think they made the playoffs the year prior to drafting Josh Allen. But now they've got a perennial MVP, and they go to the playoffs every single year because of that. But they were already good before they drafted Josh Allen. They traded up to get him. That's the big thing here, and that's really the point that I want to make. So I didn't mean to really just get so angry and passionate when you brought that topic up, but it triggered something for me, Alex. You say that, and you're right. Teams are avoiding taking good quarterbacks because they want to swing. They want a Josh Allen. They want a Mahomes. But it's like buying into fool's gold half the time. Are you even a team that's set up to maximize that boom or bust potential of Cam Ward? Can you actually build this environment that allows him to be this Josh Allen talent? More often than not, no. Of course, the New York Jets, they tried to do it with Zach Wilson. Were you a team that was set up to take that boom or bust quarterback prospect? Absolutely not. You ruined his development, and he was a bust after 2 years. So, again, the narrative that I'm trying to build here, because it's against the mainstream narrative, no, you shouldn't always be trying to home run swing. There's nothing wrong with a nice contact hit. I'll take a solid double. Maybe we'll get an RBI out of it. And that's a good thing as well. So trying to use as many references as I can in this one. I used purgatory and I used baseball. I'm all over the place. So I'll hand it back to you, Alex, get your take on what I said. Because again, this is one thing that I've grown to feel really passionate about. I'm tired of the narrative that the middle of the NFL is a hell. I'm tired of the narrative that you have to take major, massive swings to get immediately to the top. I don't believe it. Take your time, build a program, eventually go from good to great. The Giants need to be good again before they can be great, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah, you know what? To wrap up that kind of conversation, the word you're looking for is identity. And I think that the Giants don't have an identity. The Eagles have an identity. The Commanders now have an identity. The Lions have an identity. The Chiefs have their identity. Like, they have what makes them them. They have characteristics that are consistent, right? And they commit to those characteristics. They commit to what is working and the success that they're having. And they build around those variables. The Giants churn through coaches like nothing. They're on the hot seat. Their owner does, like, from what he said at the end of last season, does not have much faith in this current regime, but yet gave them the power anyway to fix it. Like, there's a lot of things that are inconsistent with this organization. There's a lot of things that are failing. Shane Bowen is not a great DC, right? Like, we're looking at a situation where our identity is compromised because our coaching is compromised at certain spots. The defense, there's a lot of talent there, man. Like, Anthony, if they don't have a good year defensively, Shane Bowen's going to be gone halfway through the season. Like, they have to have a good year because they have the talent to do so now, barring like significant injury luck, or bad significant injury luck. So, offensively, they haven't had an identity since Brian Dable took over. We had the Daniel Jones that 1 year, that first season. We're like, okay, maybe there is an identity being developed here, and under Mike Kafka's leadership, actually, as him as the OC. Now he doesn't have duties to play calls or call plays anymore. And Dable, like, this offense we don't even know what it is. Like, he ran an offense last year that was not the one he wanted to run. It was the one he was forced to run because he was trying to get any level of consistency from our quarterbacks on the roster, and they just couldn't offer it. And the offensive line was flawed. There is no identity on offense. And that's where you see other teams have more success, right? The Lions have an identity. They destroy you on the ground and then they hit you through the air. Like, they know how to get to you. Right? The Eagles have an identity. They run through the ground. Like, they know how to. The Commanders are seeing a semblance of what is emerging from Jaden Daniels. And now, like, it's interesting. Like, these really good offenses, like the Vikings, have an identity. It's Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, right? Like, that's their identity. The Giants are trying to create an identity with neighbors, but Hunter, in my opinion, gives them an identity. Like, that, they have two elite receivers now. And that really defines who they are and what they want to build around. And then you get the quarterback, and then it all comes together. You know what I mean? So, like, that's kind of what my theory is right now.
Totally agree with you. Great point. Love that you tied it into the Travis Hunter conversation. And I'll make this final point on that. Two elite receivers can make a mid quarterback look really good. Jalen Hurts. So, perfect example. Maybe the Giants don't need the home run at quarterback if they've got an amazing supporting cast around the quarterback. Well, actually, we'll have to have a debate on that off air sometime.
I wouldn't say he's elite, though. I'd say he's vastly undersized, and he shouldn't have been as good. But he's in a great system with a great coaching and an identity, and it worked around him. Like, they built around
identity.
him.
Absolutely,
that's what I mean.
Absolutely true. I get contentious with Brock Purdy discourse because people like totally negate the fact that he threw for 35 touchdowns.
No,
or
he's
something
amazing.
Like
he's
years.
awesome.
He's a great quarterback, but
Yeah,
I know
good
that's not what you
situation.
were trying. Yeah, that's not what you were trying to say. Yeah, he did go to the perfect situation. Man, I wish we had a Kyle Shanahan running our offense, right? Or that we had a duo like Ayuk and Debo in their prime, or like right now Brown and Devontae Smith. But you know how we could get closer to having a duo like that? Drafting Travis Hunter at number 3 overall. So of course, great points there. And actually, I'm gonna throw one more bonus one. Tua Tagovailoa with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill last year. I mean, somehow they made him look like a superstar. Once there were some injuries on that team, he reverted back to the norm. So again, making this point, being in the middle, maybe not so bad. Maybe you don't need the home run swing at quarterback. Maybe you get a good quarterback and you build a really good team around him, and that's how you become great. So some really good points thrown out there, maybe in favor of drafting the Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter, a talent that we have never, ever seen enter the NFL before. I'm really excited to watch him play in the league, man, whether it's for the Giants or elsewhere, just because we've never seen anything like it, and I like seeing history be made. That's really exciting. But that's pretty much going to wrap this one up. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.
Perfect.